Well, hello confirmands, it is good to see you. I hope that you are well. This is a video for confirmation on December 20th. It might go up well ahead of that, but remember this is for the 20th. This is lesson 11 of year 3. Year 3 is the early church and Lutheran Christianity, and this is for the 2023-2024 school year, of course. So if all that makes sense to you, you are in the right place. We are studying the 8th Commandment today. We're in the Small Catechism. Remember, Martin Luther said that if you don't know the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, and the Ten Commandments, you can call yourself anything you want, but you're not a Christian. That there's a certain basic knowledge that's required of a person to be the thing they claim to be, and you have to have a deep, full, rich understanding of these things in order to call yourself a Christian in any meaningful sense. And it's not just that you have it here. You have it here, and you have it here, and you have it here, and you have it here. That these are the sorts of things that shape your thoughts and your heart and your work and your words. That's what it means to follow Jesus. So again, I continue to plead with you to memorize the Small Catechism. You may think it's way too much work, but I tell you the truth. Everyone in the church older than me in the Lutheran Church for 500 years memorized that thing. Right? You are not dumber than 500 years of collected Lutherans around the world. You can do it, and there are still people living at Nelsonville, in the Nelsonville Church, who had to memorize it in both languages, English and Norwegian, in order to get confirmed. So this is something you can do if only you would. Why should you do it when you can always look it up? Well, because when you memorize something, it really does become part of the fabric of your heart. It baptizes your imagination, as it were. And it provides guardrails for your thoughts and your behavior for the rest of your life, that it becomes part of you, that you don't have to think about it, it's just as reflective. So this is, again, my monthly or so plea for you to do the thing that generations before you have done without question. We have 2 weeks in a row where everybody put their name on their assignments. I'm really grateful for that. It helps me. Again, it's a very small accomplishment, but it's something, and I appreciate it. Again, we are in the season of Advent, and we are counting down to Christmas. We are also remembering the ways that we failed in the past year. It's a penitential season. We're remembering the ways we failed and the things that we need to do to amend our lives, our words, our conduct, to be better followers of Jesus. And we are remembering that sometime soon, Jesus will come again in power and glory and usher in the kingdom of light, and that you and I need to be at work between this day and that day. So, all that being said, I think those are the announcements. Remember, remind your family, there is no Sunday morning service on December 24th. December 24th is Christmas Eve day, so there's not this. We're not having the services in the morning at Peace or Nelsonville. Instead, there's just the evening services, 5 o'clock at Peace, 10 o'clock over at Nelsonville. If you show up, especially if you're a Nelsonville kid, you probably have a key to the church, and that's cool. But there won't be anybody there, and you're welcome to just spend some time in quiet contemplation. But Sunday the 24th, there's only the 2 services, 5 at Peace, 10 at Nelsonville. All right, the first 4 words in the phrase that pays this week: a lie is like. A lie is like. All right, so 4 words out of 4 total so far. If you don't have 4 words, you'll have to go back in the videotape and search for those 4 words. All right, the 8th commandment is this: you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Fair enough. Luther's explanation, and remember, the we are to fear and love God part, all of that is always Luther's explanation in the Small Catechism. What is this? What does this mean? We are to fear and love God so that we do not tell lies about our neighbors, betray or slander them, or destroy their reputations. Instead, we are to come to their defense, speak well of them, and interpret everything they do in the best possible light. What are the actual words in the Bible? From Exodus 20, verse 16, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So there it is, short and sweet. So let's just get clear about what we're not allowed to do. It's the easier part. The part that we are required to do is harder. And again, I've told you that the 8th commandment is one of the hardest for me. It's a difficult, and maybe for everybody, but for me, it's one of the hardest, right? So in order to keep this commandment, we must not ever lie in a court of law. I mean, this is the basic thing. Like when we did the commandment on thou shalt not steal, don't take something that's not yours. Right? If it's not yours, don't take it. Protect the owner. Help the owner keep his or her property. Right? Just basic. This is the absolute top level, most basic part of this commandment. Not bearing false witness means you don't lie in court. For any reason. Period. You don't lie in court. That if you get called in and you say that you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that's exactly what you do. Now, again, at the end of the lesson, there may be times where you decide not to speak in court and you take the penalty for that. And you take it straight up. You take it like a grown man, you take it like a grown woman, right? But we'll get to those exceptions. But as a general rule, 99.99999% of the time, if you're in court, you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? So we don't lie in court. We don't lie directly. You don't say things that are wrong. You don't leave things out. And you don't, you're not slippery or evasive. You don't try to get around the lawyer's question in some cute or creative way. And you know, sometimes this is horrible, that you might be called to testify against someone that you love, or someone that you respected, or someone that you've worked with, or someone that you've known for a long time, or someone, you know, that if they go to jail, it's got profound financial consequences for you or your family. You tell the truth. You tell the truth, period. Are you a follower of Christ or not? If you're a follower of Jesus, you tell the truth, right? You tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So you don't say stuff that's not true, you don't say stuff that you wonder about, you don't say stuff you suspect, unless the lawyer says, tell us what you suspect, and then the other lawyer, if they're worth anything, will object, because that's not what testimony is supposed to be. Right? But, you know, if you're asked a question and the judge allows the question, you answer the question. You answer it succinctly, clearly, briefly, straightforwardly. You tell the truth in court. Right? There's no sense in you and I saying that we're followers of Jesus, who said that he is the truth, if we can't tell the truth. Right? If Jesus is the truth and we won't tell the truth, we're not followers. Okay? Be brave. Telling the truth will create enemies for you. There are always people who don't want you to tell the truth, who benefit from darkness, who benefit from slipperiness, who benefit from the truth being hidden. Sometimes these are big corporations, sometimes these are rich people, sometimes these are family members. There are always, sometimes it's the guilty for sure, every time, right? There will always be people who will benefit from lies or darkness, and if you tell the truth, you will make an enemy. Tell the truth anyway. Jesus is the truth. Right? So be brave. And it's your job to make sure that everyone's rights are respected in the court, right? We don't tell more of the truth to protect people like us, people who are our race or our nationality or our gender or our orientation. We want everyone's rights to be protected in court, even people we don't like. If the truth is on their side, the truth is on their side. And you know who else is on their side if the truth is on their side? Jesus is on their side, because Jesus is the truth. Jesus says, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Jesus says at one point, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Right? So if he's the truth, we got to be on the truth. And if Jesus is on the side of someone we don't like, we want to be on that side too. All right? So we must not, that's the baseline of this, right? Another basic part of this commandment is that we don't betray our neighbors by making their private struggles and their private weaknesses public. We don't talk about how people have failed, how they've done something dumb. Baby, I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, and so have you. And the last thing we need is people talking, gossiping about, you know, how the mistakes we've made, right? So we don't gossip. We don't do that to people. There's an old song. I don't know, maybe we should make this the song of the week for this week, right? Gossip, gossip, evil thing, much unhappiness it brings. If you can't say something nice, don't talk at all is my advice. I was maybe 3 or 4 when someone taught me that song, and it went right into my bones. I'm not saying that I've lived it perfectly, right? But it's a good song to have in your bones, that if you don't have something nice to say, shut up, right? So part of keeping this commandment is not gossiping, not talking about our neighbor's struggles, not talking about their weaknesses. So, and this is, even if it's true, right? Even if your neighbor or someone at school or someone that you're connected to, I mean, they're all our neighbors, right? It's the broad sense of neighbor. Everyone is your neighbor. Even if if it's true that your neighbor struggles with something, we don't talk about it. The only time that you talk about it is if you had structural responsibility, right? Remember, structural responsibility is that you have an office that gives you the responsibility for someone. So if you're a teacher and a kid is cheating, you have structural responsibility to deal with that, to talk about it to the other teachers, or to write them up, or to talk to the principal, or talk to their parents, whatever the policies of your school are, right? You don't have responsibility, and you must not, at the family table, share with that kid's classmates, your kids, yeah, Johnny is cheating again. He cheats all the time. He's a terrible cheater. And his big brother was a cheater, and I talked to the older teachers, and his mom was a cheater too. No, because that's not part of your structural responsibility. Now you've gone into gossip, you understand? Right? If you're a police officer, it's your job to tell the court or to file a report that someone was driving 75 miles an hour in a 65, right? But you don't go home and laugh with your kids about how you nailed, Mr. Johnson down the street because, he's a speeder and he can't keep the speed limit. You do the reporting that you need to do as part of your structural responsibility. You talk to the people that have to be talked to, and you don't talk to anyone else, right? So, there've been really difficult things here, where I've had to call Health and Human Services because someone wasn't taking care of themselves very well. That their house and their lives had become unmanageable for them, and that they were a danger to themselves, right? I talked to Health and Human Services, I talked to their families, and I didn't talk to anyone else about it because no one else needed to know about it. I had structural responsibility to make sure that this parishioner who had become vulnerable was safe, but not to gossip, certainly not to poke fun or to laugh. It's a tragedy when it happens, when it happens to me, and it might. I hope that whichever one of you has structural responsibility for me, my children or people, caseworkers, whoever you might grow up to be, treat me gently and protect my reputation. That the last thing people in the town know about me would not be, that I'm unable to care for myself or to keep myself clean, right? So structural responsibilities make you speak sometimes, but unless you have structural responsibilities, even if something is true, don't talk about it, right? We don't slander our neighbors by judging them, complaining about them, spreading rumors. We don't do that. It's not your job. It doesn't help anything. It makes things worse. It sets society and community on fire, right? Don't gossip. Don't complain about people. Don't spread rumors about people, period. Do I do this perfectly? No, but again, this is what God expects of us. This is how I live, and this gap here humbles me every day. This gap here makes me go to Jesus and ask for forgiveness. This gap here reminds me that I still have an awful lot of work to do myself, and I probably shouldn't be talking about your weaknesses, right? And if this expectation of God is in my bones, if it's there, if I'm clear what the rule is, it helps me to keep it because I become aware very quickly when I break it, right? And when I'm angry, it's easier to talk bad about people when you're angry. You got to deal with your anger too then, right? I mean, if you realize that when you're depressed or when you're angry or when you're sad, that you fall into gossip and complaining, well then you got two things to work on. And the gossiping and complaining can be a reminder to you that you have to work on that other thing. All right, next two words of the phrase that pays, a snowball. A snowball. So you should be up to 6 words total. All right, so there's a couple of things to remember here. Lying is almost always part of breaking other commandments too, right? So, when you break the other commandments, you're almost always also breaking this commandment. It's hard to imagine a scene in which you're not lying as you break the 4th commandment, honoring your parents, right? I mean, if you're dishonoring your parents, somehow you're hiding something, you're being slippery with something, right? You're not acknowledging some basic truth. Right? The sixth commandment prohibiting adultery. Yeah, if you're committing adultery, if you're interfering with the marriage of another person, you're also lying. Right? There's sneakiness going on. Okay, and the ninth and 10th commandment prohibiting coveting. I mean, you don't go up to someone and say, "I want what you have." No, you're pretending that you're happy. You're pretending that you're nice. You're pretending that you're a good person, but you're burning up inside because you want what they have. So this commandment, can be, if you're very sensitive about not lying, if you culture in yourself a commitment to absolute honesty, it can also help you become aware if you're on the verge of breaking the other commandments. Because this one, you know when you're doing it. You know when you're complaining or gossiping or spreading rumors. You know when you're hiding the truth. You know when you're being slippery. You know when you're shading things in the way that's most positive for you and least positive for someone else. If you catch yourself doing it, if you become a champion of truth, when you sneak into lying or when you're tempted to lying, you might also be aware that you're flirting with breaking other commandments too. So this can be a sort of a warning bell for you if you use it in that way, right? When we're hurt, when we're angry, we often go over and over and over and over the events that have happened that have made us hurt or angry. And we generally make ourselves the innocent heroes in that rehearsing of what has gone before, right? And so very, very quickly that becomes lying, that you go over and over and over it, and each time you go over it, you're a better person, and the person who hurt you or made you mad is a worse person. And pretty soon there's no connection to anything real. That you're this sparkling figure of towering integrity and grace, and this other person is an evil, twisted gnome of some kind who lives under a bridge and eats children, right? And neither one of those are even remotely true. Right? They might have been having a bad day. You might have been crabby pants all day, and you might have deserved a little bit of snapback from the person who finally came after you, right? So this thing of rehearsing injuries, this thing about going over and over and over how you've been betrayed or misled or misused, right? Very quickly that goes into lying for almost all of us, almost every time, because it becomes less connected to the truth as we go over and over and over it, all right? So don't do that, because it sends you right into lying. It sends you into a world that doesn't exist, and if you're in a world that doesn't exist, you can't make changes in the world that does exist. The next 5 words, the phrase that pays: the further you roll it. The further you roll it. Now we have 11 words total. If you don't have 11 words that make sense together, baby, you got to go back. Okay, so that's the stuff that you're not allowed to do, that this commandment forbids. And that's a chunk, and that's a lot of work. And I'm not saying it's easy. But here's where it gets just desperately hard, all right? Remember, Jesus is the truth. You want to stand with Jesus? This is the path. Instead, we must defend our neighbor when others speak ill of them and deal directly with gossips and storytellers. So someone in the lunchroom is telling stories about how, Johnny or Susie really messed up and how stupid they are. Your job is to say, I've made that same mistake, and I don't think we should be talking about Johnny or Susie like this. Full stop. There's going to be a deep silence at that table if you take this on, right? People are going to look at you, and then people are going to get mad at you because they don't want to be the ones in the wrong. They don't want anyone to point out that they were wrong. So they're going to snap at you. Who do you think you are to tell me how to live and how to talk, right? That you're going to find yourself in trouble. Jesus found himself in trouble because he is the truth, right? And there are people who prefer darkness to light. And all of us from time to time prefer darkness to light. So your job is to defend people when there is storytelling or rumors about them. Your job is to go directly to the people who are gossiping or telling these stories and tell them to knock it off. In my first church, there was a guy who was angry at us for all kinds of reasons, none of which were our fault. And he made it his job to try to destroy us. And it doesn't take very many people to destroy a pastor, right? And we were young and dumb and idealistic and full of ideas, and we needed time to figure out who we were as pastors and how to do this job. But we were there with our whole hearts. And this guy just decided to destroy us. And he was having a lot of success. I mean, we only lasted in that church 3 years. And I've been here now 27. It was never our intention to come and go. We really believe that the rural church deserves good pastors, and we're trying our best to be the good pastors that the rural church deserves. But there was one person in the church who thought that this was not okay, and who actually, there were others who thought it wasn't okay, but they were all afraid. There was a small town. They didn't want to get crosswise with anybody. They didn't want to be the topic of conversation. And as long as the town was eating us, everyone else was pretty safe. But there was one lady who went to this guy and said, "You are telling lies about the pastors. Stop it." She didn't smile. She didn't giggle, right? She was just direct and straightforward, right? And it knocked him right back on his heels. Now, the damage was largely done. But I think she reached him, right? He was a different guy. Pastor Gretchen and I didn't survive it, but I think he was a different guy, which is worth an awful lot. It's taken me a long time to get to the point where I can feel, kind of okay about the whole situation. It was really painful. But her intervening didn't help me, but it might have saved him. And what's that worth? He's a soul. He's a person for whom Jesus died, right? Be that brave person that saves someone. We should point out our neighbor's good qualities. So if someone at the lunch table is talking about how stupid Susie is, I want you to talk about something wonderful that Susie did, right? Do you know that Susie accomplished this, or she did that, or she, in these difficult circumstances, she held her head up and she did this with grace. That anytime someone knocks someone down, you build them up. Every time. Every time. That's what it means to not bear false witness, that there's a full record of this person. If we're going to talk about Susie, we're going to have a full record of Susie. Yeah, she struggled with that thing. This mean person talked about how she got caught cheating. But you're going to talk about how she is up all night taking care of her sick grandma. And the reason she didn't have her work done is because she was up all night taking care of grandma. Now, is it still funny? That changes the world. It changes the world for Susie, it changes the world for the person who is spreading rumors, and it changes your world. You're standing right with Jesus, right? Try with all your might to think the best of your neighbors. This is the part that's hard for me, that I have to work on every single day of my life. See what they do in the most positive light, explain their actions in the kindest way possible. So someone does something, my job is to try to explain in the kindest way possible why they would do that thing. Even when they have hurt me. Even when they have made me mad. Even when they have made the wrong decision, demonstrably done something foolish. You try to explain it in the kindest possible way. Right? Now, again, if you have structural responsibility, if you're a judge or a police officer or a teacher, a coach, you do your job, right? If you're a coach and the kid was drinking, they're not playing this next game, or whatever the school suspension is. Is it 3 games now? I don't know what it is. But whatever it is, you enforce that, right? But if people are talking about how this kid let the whole team down, you make sure you nip that in the bud, that part of your job as a coach is to do character development with the team, and you say, have the rest of you never made a mistake? Have the rest of you never done something that if I knew about it, I'd have to discipline you? Have you shown up for every practice with your whole heart? Have you maintained the discipline of the team and the connections of the team perfectly? I don't think so. Right? So you use your position to do what you have to do, but you also use your position to encourage the rest of the team into righteousness. And you go through life trying to explain the things people do in the kindest way possible. Now, again, let's just go political for a second, right? You're a voter. You aren't yet, but you will be, right? there you have structural responsibility to hold politicians accountable, right? You don't say, well, this politician lied or stole or cheated, but they had a hard childhood, so it's okay. No, 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 right? That's for their friends to talk to them. Maybe. I think their friends also have responsibility to keep them out of trouble, but I'm making this up as we go. But as a voter, you have structural responsibility to make sure that the people who represent us are people of good character, people who tell the truth, people who keep the law, right? People who will not break the law for their own purposes. You have structural responsibility as a voter. So you got to think through very, very carefully how you're supposed to respond in these different situations. You are allowed to see people as broken. You are allowed to see people as dangerous. If there's someone in your life that has a criminal record, if there's someone who is a danger to women or to children, you are absolutely supposed to be aware of that. And you're not breaking this commandment when you tell people who need to be told. Right? If someone is a danger to women or to children, you have to make sure that women or children in their orbit know that so that they're not injured. If it's safe for you, tell the person what you're doing. Right? If it's not safe, tell someone that would be safe. Right? I'm not asking you to put yourself in a position where you get damaged. But I can imagine situations, and so can you if you think about it a little bit, where you're not safe telling the person, there's a person who's dangerous. You're warning the vulnerable people in their orbit that they're dangerous, but you're not safe telling the person that you're doing that. So you tell someone else, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm warning these people. So it's not gossip. It's not rumor mongering. You're on the side of the angels here. You're protecting them. If you need to speak to relevant authorities, you do that. I mean, if you know that someone is a danger to women or to children or to everyone, that they're sociopathic, and you need to talk to a police officer or a social worker, great. Right? That's not gossiping. That's not rumor mongering. That's protecting your neighbor. That's protecting the innocent. You need to warn whoever needs to be warned, but only to the extent necessary to protect them. Right? You're not celebrating the brokenness of this person. You're not regaling the community with stories of weakness and woe. You're telling people who are at risk that they are at risk so that they don't get hurt. All right, the next words in the phrase that pays, the bigger it becomes. The bigger it becomes. 4 words there. You should be up to 15 total. They should make sense. It's not right to have 15 words that don't make sense, right? So read it. Okay? So a few additional things. How do you deal with someone who's hurt you? Well, the great temptation is to tell everyone how they hurt you, right? What a bad person they are, and how completely unreasonable they are, and this is just like them, and it's just like their family, and that whole family can't be trusted. They all talk out both sides of their mouths. No. If someone has hurt you, if you're safe, you talk to them, not about them, right? It's a good rule for the rest of your life. Talk to the people, not about the people, right? For really big stuff, Jesus does give us a process in Matthew 18 that first we're supposed to try to talk to them, that we're supposed to see them as lost, that their soul is in peril, like this woman in Iowa that I was telling you about, right? I mean, she dealt with this guy because she believed that he was doing the wrong thing and that his soul was in peril. So she went right to him. That's a beautiful thing. So in Matthew 18, Jesus says that if someone in the community has sinned, you go to them directly and you talk to them. If they don't listen to you, you bring 1 or 2 others with you, right? So you're not gossiping. You're trying to redeem this person. You're trying to save this person. That they're in a dark hole right now, and you bring 1 or 2 others with you. If they still won't listen, you tell it to the church, right? And then the church tries to deal with them, whether that's me or whether that's a church council, or whether that's some group of people in the church that they know and love and trust. We're trying to get this person to stop this bad behavior. And then if they still won't listen to the church, then Jesus says, let them be to you as a Gentile or a tax collector. Now, that doesn't mean they're just cast off and forgotten. Jesus loved Gentiles. He loved the tax collectors. They had to stop what they were doing to be in the circle, right, in the family of grace. But the hope was always that they would become part of the family of grace. Not that people are written off, but that people repent and are brought back. And again, this is if you're safe. If you're not safe, you come to me and I'll try to help you figure out, where we start this process so that you are safe. Last thing, and this is big. This is where a big temptation comes in, all right? There are times to withhold the truth, right? If speaking the truth would result in injustice or harm, right? If someone's going to be damaged because you speak the truth. And again, I give an obvious thing here, but there are others that I can imagine, that you and your parents could imagine, and maybe that's a good exercise for you and your parents. What are situations in which you think it would be all right, maybe even appropriate, for me to lie, right? So you don't tell the Nazis where they can find Anne Frank, right? If you haven't read it yet, you're going to read the Diary of Anne Frank. It's a young Jewish girl who goes into hiding because the Nazis will kill her and her family if they find her. If you know where Anne Frank is hiding and the Nazis ask you, sing a song, right? Dance a dance as loud and as fast as you can. Right? You don't tell the Nazis where Anne Frank is. You don't help them kill a little girl, right? So you lie with every bit of creativity and sincerity that you can manage. And I'm willing to allow that there may be other situations in which lying is necessary. But you will often think that you're in a situation in which lying is necessary, the right thing to do, and almost always you will be wrong, right? Because you will be wanting to lie to protect yourself from consequences. That's not right. We don't lie to protect ourselves from consequences. We only lie as a very last resort to protect the innocent, right? That's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. So if you're cheating on a test, right, and you get caught and they ask you about it, you don't think, well, this is going to damage my ability to get into a good college, right, so I'm going to lie about it. No, you did it. You cheated. You cheated everyone else in the class that didn't cheat. You cheated your teacher. You cheated yourself. And if you get into this good college because you cheated the person who would have had that place, who didn't cheat. It is an enormous consequence that you took someone off a life path of grace and provision, right, by your lying. So we don't lie to protect ourselves. If you cheat, you take your medicine, right? Don't cheat. But if you do, and you get caught, take your medicine. So that's not an excuse to lie. There are very, very few excuses to lie, and almost all the time when you think you're on one, you're not, right? The rule almost always applies. Don't lie, right? That lying is only a last resort to protect the innocent. That's it. Only a last resort to protect the innocent. There might be 1 or 2 times in your whole life where it's something that you have to do. And I want you to feel sick doing it. I want you to be absolutely sick. That's a signal that probably you're on the right path. That I have to do this wicked thing in this broken world in order to protect the innocent. Because that's what we're talking about, doing a wicked thing in a broken world to protect the innocent. If that's not what you're talking about, then don't lie. Lying destroys relationships. It destroys connection. It destroys your ability to feel loved, right? You lie to your parents, they tell you that they love you or respect you. You can't believe them because they don't know this thing that you did. Don't lie. Keep the commandments. You make a mistake, take your medicine. Do better next time. Every single person in the world has been in those shoes that you find yourself. Every single one of us has done something stupid and we had to take our medicine. Sometimes it is really, really painful, powerful medicine. Take your medicine. Don't lie. So the commandment of God is you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. We are to fear and love God so that we do not tell lies about our neighbors, betray or slander them, or destroy their reputations. Instead, we come to their defense, speak well of them, and interpret everything they do in the best possible light. Now, I don't know if I told you that this is a Martin Luther quote. Of course it is. Right? Next week's not. But that's the last 2 words, Martin Luther. Now you should be up to 17 words with Martin Luther at the end, including Martin Luther. All right, you take care of yourself. Look at your syllabus to see when we're meeting and when we're not meeting. Just a heads up, we are not meeting that Wednesday that Wednesday right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year, right? So this is the lesson for December 20th, and the next lesson, I think it's January 3rd, something like that, early in 2024. You take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.